Welcome to the weekly podcast, which looks at every aspect of something which has or will at some point affect us all. And that is grief. Whether you've lost a loved one or are about to lose someone you love, or perhaps you're simply trying to support someone navigate their grief and don't know where to start or what to say, then perhaps this is the podcast for you. I'm Venetia Quick, and each week I'll be bringing you different stories and experiences of loss, love, hope, and at times humour. Welcome to this episode. My guest is the remarkable Stephen Moylan, founder of the Stephen Moylan Foundation. This charity provides essential supports to bereaved children, which is, I think, invaluable, especially when this help can be so difficult to get. Susan, you're very, very welcome.
Thank you.
Now, the foundation is called the Stephen Moylan Foundation, but your story actually starts way before that. You lost your husband, Sean.
I did.
Yeah. In 2003.
Yeah.
Can you perhaps tell us a little bit about Sean, how you met, you know, the sort of guy he was?
Sean was funny, loyal, loving. He was just everything you want. He was it.
All in one.
Yeah. I met Sean when I was 16. He was 18. We shared the same birthday. So we're both born on the 9th of December. And I met him in a nightclub that I was too young to be in. And it took off from there. He went on to Templemore to become a guard, and I just adored him. He couldn't do any wrong. Other boyfriends were getting into trouble for, you know, having too many pints. Sean was served on a silver tray. Like, I just absolutely idolised him.
And he went off to Templemore to become a guard.
Yeah.
But he kept the relationship going.
Yeah.
So
I still have the letters we wrote to each other.
Oh, and which
no phone.
Yeah, but isn't it great to have? Because the messages, had you had a phone, would be gone.
That's it.
So he comes back from Templemore, fully fledged guard.
Yeah.
And you get married.
We do.
Yeah.
We have 4 children: Laura, Eamon, Caroline and Stephen. And there was nothing outside the hall door that mattered to Sean. Well, bar the odd man and his mates and his football. We were just... I thought I had it all. I had it all. I was so happy, so content. Sean was so much fun. Everybody wanted to be around him when he was out, and we were the first to get married, the first to have children, the first to buy a house.
Were you young?
I was only 19.
Wow.
Yeah. So, you know, when I think of my own children, I say, my God almighty. We were I was married with a child and a mortgage at 19 years of age. How did we do it then? When our 40-year-olds are in the box room now? Well, a lot has changed.
But it's interesting, like you were 19, it's almost like, as you're saying now, everybody does it later.
Yeah.
But maybe there was a reason, as it turned out to be, that your life started younger.
But Venetia, isn't it when you look back, you realise why everything happened the way it did? You know, you hear people saying babies having babies. But when I looked back, when Sean passed, and my children were not babies, I was like, that's why.
Yeah, because it is, I mean, it's something that with my own husband struck me, because I met him when I was 20 and we got engaged 6 months later with, you know, I think it was a 20 pound ring from Torremolinos, and I just went, you know, it was all like, I was like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And I was like, oh no, we're getting married. And then of course I sort of was like, no, I'm too young. And we actually didn't get married till 10 years later. But then I realise now why, in one way, we'd all of that much younger because we weren't going to have it when we were
weren't
older.
gonna have it,
So Sean was very healthy. He played football.
He was really healthy.
Obviously, he was in the Guards, so he had
was
to
in
have a
the
level of
gym.
fitness.
Yeah, he was. He'd go off on a cycle for hours and hours. He was healthy, and he wanted to be healthy. He could down a few pints, but he could also play football. He was a brilliant footballer, actually. And he was like, when we had our children, both of us worked, so the time with the kids was special. So when we came home, we'd get them all in the car and go down to the Albert College, play basketball, or, go bowling.
So sporty family.
Yeah. I played for Ballymun-Kickham's. Sean, well, I did after a while being married to Sean, because I wondered what life would be like to have a Tuesday and Thursday off and a match on Sunday. So I played for them. The two boys were soccer players, but they went on. They did play for Kickham's as well. So we were sporty and healthy, and we were happy. We were like, honestly, we were on the crest of a wave. Everything was fine.
Until
we used to go to France every year for holidays, for a month. We'd go to a place called Antibes near Juan-le-Pin, Nice. And we used to go for a month, and our friends used to come with us, different friends every time, or some would come for 2 weeks, go for 2 weeks, but that was our thing. And we did that for 11 years. And one year we had driven, so it didn't take as long to get there as it would as we thought. So the people who owned the cabins and mobiles, they said, stay another night, and we were like, oh no, we're all packed up. And they were like, look, that one's free, stay in there. So we did, but I didn't plug in, the plugs for the mosquitoes.
Yeah.
And Sean was bitten by a mosquito at the temple area of his head. And that's all I know about Sean's illness. It started after he was bitten. Yeah. And when we got home, like, he drove home, everything was fine. But when we got home, say 2 or 3 days later, he said, Susan, my vision is gone a bit funny. I put a patch on one eye, and he could see properly with the other eye. So we went to an eye specialist, and he tried everything he could, and he said, I think you need to see a neurologist. So we went to the neurologist, and they could not find what was wrong. So Sean went from not being able to see properly, they'd blast him with steroids, he'd be fine. Then he got Bell's palsy, and then they blasted him with steroids, he was fine. Then he lost his swallow, so all the food had to be munched. Now, this is over a period of time.
Wow.
But
it must have been pretty scary, because
it was.
Once you sort of would appear to have got rid of one thing, and another thing, and another thing.
Yeah. So the neurologist explained actually I teach anatomy, so the brain is like, say, a piece of meat, and then you have the nerve endings coming out. And whatever was happening to Sean seemed to be jumping from one nerve ending to another. I remember one Christmas Eve, Santa was bringing a trip to Liverpool for the boys, and John lost the pair of his legs. Now that was strange, because all the nerve endings that were being affected were up at the temple area, but this was around at the back of his head, at the occipital. Right. So we were a bit concerned about that, because it had jumped. So his legs would go, like if he was getting out of the car, he'd nearly knee himself on the head. There was over-exaggerated movements. And then they brought him into hospital. He was okay, he brought the boys, but he had to go back into hospital when he came back. And then...
And during this time, did you know what was wrong? Was there...
No, they couldn't tell us.
So just all this sort of like a domino effect of things going wrong with his body. So assume he couldn't work either.
Well, he did work because He was a ministerial driver.
Okay.
So he could get healthy and work for a week and then come home, and he used to. But at this time we had exhausted all the main medical areas, so now he had gone alternative, and that was really working. So in the end, he lost the power to breathe properly. Like, he used to sound like a foghorn when he was trying to breathe. And he was in Donegal, and I got a message to say that he was very ill. So I went up and we stayed in the hospital for 3 weeks. And I remember he had asphyxiated, and they brought him back. And then I remember he was on oxygen for the 3 weeks, and he said to me, "Jesus, I think I could play football again. I feel fantastic."
Wow.
So I was like, "That's great, but we're going to France in 3 weeks, and I'd rather
You
the
didn't.
neurologist saw you." So we went back into the doctor, and he said, "You're good to go. You're fit as I've seen you in the past 7 years." And he was doing really well. And off we went on the 3rd of July, and on the 18th he died.
In France?
In France, on holidays.
Just out of...
Well, the nerve ending to tell him to breathe
Just
went.
So you're on holidays in France?
Yeah.
With your 4 kids?
Yeah.
And then, so how, I mean, just getting the dynamics of travelling with 4 young children on your own anyway.
And with their friends.
But just then all of this on top.
Yeah.
So you took him home?
Yeah, we took him home. So Sean died at 20 to 5 in the morning, and all our friends were there. And actually, Laura, my eldest girl, she was in Spain, working in Spain for the summer, and she had just flown in that morning. And my eldest boy, Eamon, he was on a scholarship in Atlanta, Georgia, and he flew in that morning.
Was that by pure coincidence?
Pure coincidence. But you and I know, Venetia, don't we? There is no such thing as coincidence.
No.
Yeah. And I remember at the time, the one thing that stood out in my mind, because we were all, every evening we'd go to a different family for drinks and food.
Yeah.
And we were,
so it was a very social
it was
time.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we were around there, but Laura had these shoes. I don't know if you remember them. They were like see-through at the bottom, you know.
The jelly shoes. Yeah.
And Sean said to her, she was going off with her boyfriend and their friends and her brothers, and she was walking past, and Sean said, "That's my daughter with the waterproof crystal shoes." I just remembered the last night him saying that. He was singing. And I said to him, "I wish you wouldn't sing, because I'm afraid you're going to use up so much energy and oxygen." And he said, "Susan, I want to sing." Yeah. And I said, "Well, do you want me to sing for you?" And he said, "God, no." So he sang away, and he came home, and it was the first time.
He was a larger than life.
Oh, he
character.
was deadly. Yeah, he really was. And I had gone home because the kid that came with us was a little bit homesick. And I said, "No, I'll go back with her, you know, just to calm things down." And I didn't hear Sean coming in. And I swear, Venetia, it must have been the first time ever I was asleep when Sean came in. And I woke to the sound of bellowing breathing. And I asked the children to go and get help. And they ran through the whole, I don't know, miles and miles, looking for somebody who had oxygen and to call an ambulance. And Sean was gone. I knew he was gone because I was doing resuscitation, and I just felt him go. But I kept trying, you know, so... It wasn't
until...
It's a
very, very hard thing for you to bring that with you.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you question yourself when you do some intervention like that, because you're saying, did I do it too early? Was I sure that he wasn't breathing before I tried this?
Yeah.
You know, it's just, you torture yourself because you're why? Why?
But that's a part and parcel, I think, of it. And that's something that later on, a little bit, you go, okay, if you're given the choice of, do you keep going, do you not, and you have to make that choice as well.
Yeah.
You do question that.
Of course.
You know, and there's guilt with that. Yeah. And there's, you know, this sort of fear that one of your kids going to, if they know, is going to turn around and go, you made that. But, you know, that's something I think you work through, and it comes back at you sometimes, and other times, you know, it goes away. When you finished, well, not when you finished, but like your holiday obviously was finished. Everything was, and you had to go home then.
Yeah.
Like, how did you even get to that point where you could get on a plane?
I just did what I was told. You know, Sean had trained with a guy, and he was in Paris, a police in Paris. I forget the title, but he came down to us and he stayed with us, and he arranged the tickets, and my 2 youngest children were on Sean's passport, so I had to get emergency passports. Everything was very quick and very slow. I was looking in slow motion, but actually everything was happening really fast. And it's most unusual when your loved one has to be repatriated that you would have him home at tea time the next day, you know.
Wow, that was fast. Yeah.
Yeah. And we got a lot of support and a lot of help from the guards and from the ministers. And we were really lucky. And Mary Coughlin was amazing. She was amazing. You know, she loved him.
You had to then start, this was July, so assuming September comes, kids' school, all that sort of stuff. How did you manage with 4 children? And, you know, each child navigates their grief differently, and it manifests itself in different ways.
It sure does.
Did you, at what point did you turn around and go, I need to look at what my grief or how I'm feeling in this? Because you tend to push that to the side.
Yeah, you do really. But I remember I had so many friends. Well, Sean had so many friends, and part of a club, and everybody was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. But my children, Eamon had to go back to America because he was captain of the college team in Atlanta, where he was over there on an academic and a sports scholarship. So he had to be back there on the 4th of August. So Eamon went back. Laura was working, so she went back to work, and the 2 younger, Caroline and Stephen, were in school. So I don't remember, Venetia, how I managed. I don't remember. I do remember 3 of them coming into my bedroom, and I said, why aren't you in school? And they said, oh no, we've all given up.
Given up school?
They gave up everything because I had given up.
Yeah.
And they said, no, we're not going to school. And I was like, I'm so ridiculous. Of course you're going to school.
Yeah.
So that was a huge lesson.
Yeah, I think, I sort of resonate with that, because I think you sort of, there does come a point where you go, you're expecting them to go to school, you're expecting them to go to football, you're expecting them to go to hockey or whatever they're doing. Yeah. So you suddenly have to go, okay, well, I need to go back to work, or I need to do this, because you have to, I suppose, show them that you can do it too. You know, because they don't see that you're running everything in the background and making sure they're fed and doing the shopping.
I think I checked out for a while.
Yeah.
And then I came back. I suppose, and as you know, all your plans, they're all in the future, and they all include your husband and your children.
And they're gone.
And all the plans are torn up, they're shredded in front of you. But that doesn't mean that your children's plans are shredded. They still have to go to football training, they still have to go to work. But I don't know, don't you wish you just went with them?
Yeah, I think there are definitely times like that, and there's definitely times like, why did you go?
How
and
dare you leave me with 4 children? How dare
Oh yeah,
you do that?
I had a few of those ones.
Yeah, at 2 o'clock in the morning in Dargliston. Have a jump through a hedge to get there.
Well, yeah, and we just get so. And I remember actually saying that to somebody. I think it was around at Christmas time, where just maybe in the first or second year, and I just got this anger of, why have you left? Why, you know? And they were quite shocked. They were like, how can you be so, you know, they didn't get set. And I remember going, yeah, okay, because it is a weird thing, the anger thing. It's like it sort of reminded me of if you split up with somebody and you sort of like the upset, then the sort of the anger, and then the sort of like, yeah, whatever. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the whatever doesn't come.
No,
You know, it never comes.
it never comes.
You went through all this, you know, in a very, very tremendously sad, because of what a happy life you'd had.
Yeah, yeah.
That to me would say, you've had your tragedy, that's your hard pass.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to have some sense of a more peaceful, perhaps, life, less eventful moving forward.
Yes,
but then it
we've
didn't
had
happen.
the worst that can happen.
Yeah,
Nothing
so
else
that
can
did not
happen to
happen.
us. You kind of feel a little bit safe, don't you?
You sort of feel that I've had my time.
God love you. You don't know what's coming.
But that didn't happen, did it?
No, that didn't happen. So I was really proud of my children and the adults they became. But I knew that the ingredients they needed to become that adult was Sean and me. And they did. And they were amazing. Amazing. And Stephen was coming up to his 30th birthday. My mum had passed away in January, and that was horrendous. And then Stephen went off in February to enjoy his 30th birthday with all the lads who grew up with him. Some were younger, some were the same age, but they were going away for his 30th. So he packed up his 3-month-old little girl and his 6-year-old who had come to visit, and I remember he was in the driveway putting the little baby into the car, and I said, Stephen, I said, yeah. I said, come home safe. He said, I will, Mum. But he didn't. He didn't come home safe, because he didn't come home at all. He drowned on holidays.
How... When you, obviously, you got that call, and...
I actually didn't get a call. I was in bed, and my eldest son, Eamon, came in the door, and I jumped out of my side of the bed, and I said, it's Stephen. And he said, yeah, Mum, he drowned. This roar came from my womb. You'd never hear the like of it. When I'm watching films and I see people hearing about, I'm like, no, it's worse. The sound that your body makes, it's not your throat. It was horrendous. My next door neighbour, Gillian, told me that she thought it was someone on the road.
So she could hear...
She could hear it, like, and I said to him, don't be so ridiculous. You know, you need to go home and get into bed, because this is not happening. But it was. And it did.
And how long had it been away?
He was gone, I think, 9 days. No, he wasn't gone that long, about a week. Yeah.
That's the sort of time where, I mean, you know, it's a parent's worst nightmare.
Yeah.
It is a parent's worst nightmare, and
Absolutely.
that's it. And I think you can anything else you can handle that is just something that I don't think any parent should ever have to go through, because it's wrong and it's not the way life should happen.
It's amazing the way your body reacts to death. When Sean died, I thought my heart had disintegrated. When Mammy died, I kind of could accept she was 92.
Yeah.
But she was still my mum, and I was heartbroken. But when your child dies, it's like a violent attack on your womb and your heart, and it's like they're hoovered out. You know, this, it's like something you'd see in Star Wars. It's just incredible. I can't describe it. But it was like I emptied out through this sound. And Stephen was in Barcelona, the W Hotel, and he had a few drinks, as they do, and he was at the back of the hotel, and the stones at the back of the hotel covered in moss. Now, Laura tried to stand on it the next day when we went. She wanted to see, but you couldn't. You had to hold on to it. They were so slippy. And isn't it ironic that Sean, the nerve endings at his temple were affected, and Stephen fell and banged the same temple.
Wow.
And he was gone. He drowned. I just think that's just insane. That one little part of two huge, strong men.
Were they alike?
They were alike, yeah. They were alike.
Because you were saying before as well, like, we were talking about that Sean was great crack.
Yes.
Was Stephen great crack?
Oh, God, his laugh. His laugh was so loud. I remember shortly before we were at my partner Mick, his daughter, got married, and honest to God, all I could hear was Stephen's laugh. Yeah. And I'm like, shh, I know you're in your late 20s, but be quiet. Yeah, so his laugh was loud. He was a fantastic son. He was a brilliant friend. Like, there was nothing he wouldn't do for his friends. He was an entrepreneur. He owned his own business. He had bought his own house. At 27, like, he was just amazing. Amazing.
And he was an amazing dad.
And he was a super duper dad. His little boy, Lenny, my God, he went everywhere with them, and you know, he's so beautiful, and he's so like him, and he's so enriched because he had Stephen in his life. You know, but Cleo is more like Stephen than Lenny. Lenny is quiet. Cleo is the character, and I've definitely reared her before. And Emma, his partner, is an amazing man. You know, it's just amazing.
Now, what's come out of this is the Stephen Moylan Foundation.
Yes.
And what you do, and I am particularly struck by this because I'm well aware of the maybe lack of support or help or availability of support for kids who have been bereaved. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about the foundation and what your work is with it.
The foundation, it was started up with my family and close friends, and then people from the community came in and wanted to help as well. So all these people have their own jobs, they all work full time, but they give their time to come to the meetings and fundraise, and it's amazing. So what we do is, if somebody realises a death in their family, or somebody knows of anybody who has children and they've died, we then get a phone call. Now, sometimes we get a phone call because the children are asleep and the remaining parent or family don't know how to tell the children. Mm-hmm. So the phone can ring in the middle of the night, and I will then find out about the children and then age appropriately help them to tell their children. But what we offer is counselling for the children aged between 5 and 18. And if a mum or a dad, or in some cases both of them, pass at the same time or not, we then match up the counsellor with the child's needs.
Wow.
Be it their age, be it their neurodiversity, be it their language, their first language. We will match that up and link them in with the counsellor. Normally it takes about, 5 or 6 weeks, and the child is sitting with the counsellor. Now, it's easier if the parent or the family member can drive, because there are counsellors, but they're not right next door to where you want them to be. No. So if the parents can drive, we can link them up much quicker.
Wow.
But if the parents can't, then I have a few counsellors who will go into schools, take the child from their classroom, counsel them and bring them back to their classroom. And that's for mums and dads who have no means of transport, or they're not living with the child, or whatever the circumstances are.
That's, I mean, it's just incredible, because even you're saying 6 weeks. I mean, it's like, if you look at waiting lists, it's like years.
The counsellors that do the counselling for the Stephen Moylan Foundation, they are incredible. Play therapists, they're drama therapists, they're used to neurodiversity at every level. They're just special people.
How has this helped you with keeping Stephen's name out there and making, I mean, when people say the Stephen Moylan Foundation, everyone knows who Stephen Moylan is. He's a person. His name is still, you still speak his name.
Yes.
Which is one of the most important things,
absolutely,
I think, for the people left behind.
Yeah.
Has that helped you in any way manage?
Well, it certainly kept me busy.
Yeah.
Because I had to go to college in order to be able to be.
Because you went
to
back.
do it.
Yeah.
So when Stephen died, I had a degree in counselling, and after he died, knowing what we were going to do, because there was so little help out there, and Stephen had 2 children in need, and I went back and did a master's in child and adolescence, so that obviously I can't offer my services in the foundation, the conflict of interest, but at least, and most of all, I can help the children better because I know what they need.
Yes.
So, I say, Cleo was 3 months when Stephen died, and the majority of people would say, "Oh, thank God she was so young." You know that she doesn't realise. But in research, it is proven that between the age of in utero to the age of 5, that child, if a parent dies in that time, that child is linked with teenage years, numbing, promiscuism, drinking, drug taking, because they know that something is not there and they don't know what it is. So they try to replace it with the father figure, or, so it is essential that that baby gets supports in place. But the Stephen Moylan Foundation does not just want to help that child once. We want mum or dad or auntie or uncle to be able to call us and say, she's gone off track, or I'm worried, and we're like, get her back.
Yeah, because you don't know when
exactly.
It's going to suddenly come out of nowhere, even if like a child seems fine in inverted commas, but you know what I'm saying. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, and you're going, what's that about?
Their
And
eyes
it's
are pinned.
7 years down the line. So obviously you've got to fundraise.
Yes.
Because this is an expensive service
It is.
that
Yeah.
you are providing.
Yeah.
How do you fundraise?
We fundraise by people being very kind. I suppose the people who have got help no more than when Stephen was brought home was completely different to Jean being brought home. It was 13 days before I saw my baby.
Wow.
Yeah. And because it was just a different world. So Kevin Bell brought Stephen home, and we did a fundraiser for them and raised 57,000 in a day. So I knew my girls could fundraise after that. So then they have been doing a lot of that. But
So
the
it's a
team,
family, yeah.
No, it's so much more than the family now. Initially, to try and help other families repatriate, they did that. And I was like, God, they can do this. So, but the community, every time something is on, I see the same faces.
Yeah.
They are behind us. They are hugely behind us. I know they're going to be there. I can arrange fundraising because I know they're going to turn up. But we need to spread that wider, because initially we had set up for Dublin 9, 7 and 11. Now we're moving out. We have kids from different parts of the country being looked after. So Venetia, I want a house.
Yeah.
I want a house that these kids can come to
Yeah.
and learn how to play the guitar and know that everyone in this house is the same as them.
Yeah.
It is.
And do
that's
you know
the
something?
difference.
That's actually is the difference.
Yeah.
It's because especially with younger kids, I know one of my sons is neurodiverse, and it wasn't in an environment where he'd come across other autistic kids before, or
Yes.
and then to be suddenly in a year where there's maybe a couple of others, like, do you know, they're the same as me.
Yes.
And that makes all the difference.
Yeah.
And like, it's the same for, obviously, when, one of the others, a pal of theirs, unfortunately, parents sadly passed away as well. And they said, I'm going to write them
the club.
Welcome to, yeah. But it was like, I sent him a little card. I didn't know what to say, but I sent him a card. And they'd been
That's
at primary
beautiful.
school together.
Wow.
And, again, something very sudden. And it does help kids to know they're not the only one, because it sort of makes that, it makes them feel different. They feel different
absolutely.
because they don't have a parent anymore, or they have whatever. So to be around people, it's sort of reassuring.
Absolutely.
Like,
when you take your children on holidays, does a child calling dad sound louder?
yeah.
When
Yeah.
you go to a football match, does "Come on, son" sound different, louder? Like
Or
it
when
has
you're the only mum.
when you're the only mum.
Yeah.
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 When your children are told in school that all the mammies and daddies can come to their concert or their show instead of parents or guardians.
Yeah, no, that is what is so remarkable about what you're doing, and I've no doubt you will get that house.
I have to.
Yes,
Loads of
you
them
will.
in every county in the country.
Well, there's
baby steps.
No, but why not? Because
not?
also these kids are the future, and we
Yes.
need to look after them. If you were to give somebody a message of hope, or something that you have learned along the way, what would that be?
Oh God. That there are other people. You're not the only one, but your story is unique to you. And people do know. They do know, and they're so kind and so helpful. And you will get through it. It's like carrying a bag of coal, and you pick it up the wrong way first, and you put your back out. And then you realise that if you bought a little trolley with 2 wheels, you could balance it better. You still have to bring the coal.
But it's a lighter load.
But you can manage it better if, after a while, time... I hate that sentence. But as time passes, you move that bag around and you try it different ways. But grief is something that you can't avoid. You know, you can try all those numbing methods, but grief has great patience and it will wait for you. I tried to get under it. I tried to get over it, and I tried to get around it. And using stranger methods than you'd think. But one day I had to put my big girl pants on and say, this is coming with me every second of every day of my life. And in order to live my life without my baby every day, like I was left here, he was taken, there's got to be a bigger reason. So his life's purpose was over. Mine clearly wasn't. So I have to do 2 things every day for this foundation. 2 things every day, because this is clearly my purpose. I found it. I know as a counsellor, it's my purpose. So I need to set this up and get it done and get to them.
And you have, and I know you've ball coming up in February, and you can find out more
Valentine's
on the
Day.
website.
Yes, you can.
The Stephen Moylan Foundation.
Yeah, and it'll be an amazing night.
Susan, you're amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, Venetia.
Thank you for listening to this episode. You can find us on SoundCloud and wherever you get your podcasts every Tuesday. You can join our online community on Facebook, The Grief Pod, or on Insta @GriefPod Series.